Town of Monroe, joint meeting, Board of Finance and Town Council. This meeting will be accessed by the public either in person or electronically in real time. As set below, this meeting will be recorded and made available on the town's website pursuant to state law. If you are attending remotely, please remember to mute your microphone unless you are speaking. Anyone participating remotely should state their name and title, if applicable, at the outset of each occasion that such person is speaking. All votes taken, which any member of the body or participating remotely should be taken by roll call unless the vote is unanimous. Chat feature will not be utilized or considered during this meeting. So we are officially in order. I figure I'll go through the roll call with everybody. Rebecca O'Donnell, starting on our side first. Steve Kirsch.
Present.
Samantha Spino.
Present.
Catherine Soffer.
Present.
Nicholas Centimides.
Present.
And on Town Council, we have Chairman Formichella.
Here.
Enid Lapellis.
Not here.
Not here. Okay. Vincent Duva.
Walking in. He's here.
All right, we'll count him. Perfect. Kathy Kohut.
Here.
Jason Maurer.
Here.
Sean O'Rourke.
Here.
Janice Persico.
Not here.
Not here. Kevin Reed.
Not here. Possibly remote.
Donald Wells.
Here.
All right. Terrific. And First Selectman Rooney's there.
So yes, sir.
Perfect. All right. And we've got Ron Bonofsky
Here.
and Heidi.
Here.
Perfect.
And Frank
All right.
here.
Frank,
Mike.
you're there too. He's always there hiding in the corner. Thank you, Frank.
I always put the Marine at my back.
There you go. I love that. Okay, so this is a meeting for joint capital discussion. So actually, I'm gonna let Chairman Formichella kind of start things off with us and kind of walk us through anything they would like to discuss on their side, and then we can have a little go back and forth.
All right, thank you, Mike. Can you hear me?
Perfectly.
Oh, great. So thank you, Chairman Manjos, for having us. Thank you, Board of Finance members, for having us this evening. It's again always great to collaborate with the Board of Finance where we can, having proper planning for the town of Monroe and its future, especially when it comes to the capital planning. I thought there are really three areas that I thought that we can discuss, get some input, or pose some questions that the Board of Finance can deliberate on and give us an answer sometime in the future. The first area was total bonding for 2024-2025, what the Board of Finance's tolerance for the total amount that would be an appropriate amount or the appropriate limits for bonding for the next fiscal year. Second, as to a discussion of fire services and equipment, specifically the purchasing of two apparatuses or vehicles, one of which for the Monroe Fire Department, the other for the Stepney Fire Department. For Monroe, it was a tanker, and Stepney is a new pumper. Recently at a SBC meeting, we had received information that these estimates were likely inaccurate at this time, given supply chain issues as well as the demand for these vehicles. At least for the Monroe engine, the estimate went from $900,000 to 1.1 or $1.2 million was at least my recollection of the estimate at this time. As for the Stepney pumper, I don't believe there was an estimate given.
It was also given at 1-1 to 1-2.
Well, so both were 1-1 to 1-2. So there was an idea brought forth in SPC to bond for both vehicles during this fiscal year, meaning 2023-2024, to hold our place in line for both of these vehicles, as well as to ensure some stability of the pricing as these items have become more and more expensive. So what I ask for an opinion or some type of deliberation from the Board of Finance. To see if there's any chance to potentially put out for bonding for both of those vehicles this fiscal year to hold our place in line. There were varied estimates as to the delivery of both of these vehicles, but I believe it was 30+ months out for both. So I would ask the Board of Finance to give us an opinion as to that, as to where on our balance sheet this bonding would count against, whether it would be this fiscal year's bonding or in 30+ months if it would be reflective on that, as well as any type of impact that would have on future financial planning and bonding.
Ron, can I just get a clarification? I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just want to make sure. So Ron, we could approve but not issue them, correct?
That is correct.
And so technically that wouldn't affect this year's bonding total, correct?
Expense wise.
Correct.
Correct. I just want to get that on the record, make sure everybody's clear on that. So basically,
Extra bond.
and what I would love us to do is to, certainly by the time we finish our budget, we will come back to town council with at least a tight range of where we are comfortable with a total bonding number. But this particular one would fall into the year that delivery would be coming in. So, could be 2 to 3 years out.
I believe there was estimated 2027. I believe. Yeah. So speaking about those two items, as for some type of clarification as to whether or not there was an expiration on any of these bonding resolutions, if that would come into any issue, if Ron had.
I'm not aware of any.
I thought it was
could
5
double-
years, Ron, but I don't know why I thought about that when speaking to bond
Yeah,
counsel at some point. I thought
Yeah, I could.
I thought we
could
got to
check with
re-up it
bond
was 5
counsel on
years,
that.
but yeah, that was my recollection. Don't hold me to it, but for some reason that sticks in my head. And Chairman, the other question I had for you was, have you guys spoken to the fire departments about an overall vehicle plan? Is there other things that will be a year or two later, or are we going to be, 5 years out before we're into our next vehicle cycle?
Well, they have engaged in a vehicle replacement plan. I don't have that plan with me today, but they had engaged in this process of at least 1 or 2 vehicles a year over a period of time. They did engage in that exercise when we last spoke to them about replacing a vehicle. It was the mini pumper for the Monroe Fire Department. That was addressed at the last SBC meeting for capital in the prior fiscal year. They had come up with a schedule about that. We can ask fire services to provide us another copy of that to provide to the Board of Finance. But they did come up with a pretty comprehensive vehicle replacement plan on their end. I don't know that.
Chairman Manjos, one.
Yes.
There at the last SBC meeting, they did mention that there would be one that would be coming up in the 25-26 fiscal year. That would probably be delayed by those same issues, whether we wanted to issue the bonding for all 3 at the same time. Now
That was kind of, it's exactly where I was, that's exactly where
or,
I was going. Exactly. You read my mind, so.
Yes, so there's one, I don't remember which station it was for, but there's one that's in their capital plan for.
Monroe Fire, it's in the capital plan, it's engine tanker 75.
So that, it's the definite need to get at least bonding for 2 on the books as soon as possible. Getting 3 wouldn't be a bad idea. The other aspect of these is they can't place the order for these until we have a bonding authorization. Which is why and we can't lock in any pricing until we have a bonding authorization. So not only is the pricing of these engines continuously going up and up and up, There's also some new safety mandates that are coming up that we would get stuck behind, which would increase the pricing, as well as the fact that these two vehicles that are that are on this one, we're paying monthly maintenance fees on to repair them for just regular repairs to try to keep them running.
Got it. Yeah, no, I think I mean, as far as going, obviously, I would think this would be a logical thing to do and plan out over the next few years. So certainly, I don't think anybody on finance would object to getting them in place, and especially if we're looking at a 2 to 3 year window. I don't want to speak for everybody else on the board, but I think it would make sense to get a firm number on all three and try to do them all at one shot. I don't know what everybody else's thought is on that.
Yeah, I mean, the fire chief spoke about the fact that these things are going up monthly or quarterly increases now. So yes, if we can issue bonds now, go to a public meeting and issue the bond and get the approval, and then we'll issue them when we need them in a couple of years, and then we can just lock in the price.
Right.
I have a
Not the price now.
Oh, sorry, Steve. I have a clarifying question. These would be individual bonds for each department, correct?
So usually when the bond authorization is drafted, in this case, it would be one authorization for the total apparatus being purchased
Okay,
with spelled out. But if one apparatus came in a little higher and one came in a little lower, you'd be okay.
mhm,
As long as you spent within, you'd be limited to the total appropriation.
okay,
There was also some discussion at SPC that we can always estimate a little bit here and kind of fix up in the 26-27 fiscal year. Let's say it is when these are actually issued, that if it comes in under, great. If it comes in a little bit over, depending on how much over, we could either always do another bond then for the difference, or come out of our rainy day fund, depending on, or contingency, or whatever the case may be, depending on if it's a little bit over. But lock in pricing now. And we just don't know if there's any mandates that come through that any trucks made after that point would have to abide by, that we wouldn't have estimated for.
Right.
Yeah, these trucks are now falling under the new EPA rules for emissions, which is why they're gonna have new engine specs.
Don't want the engine making smoke on the way to the fire. Is that the plan?
Whatever it is.
Sorry, couldn't help myself.
Heidi's used to bad finance jokes all day.
There you go.
somebody
All right.
told me to have fun at my fund at my meeting tonight.
We'll do the best.
So
Awesome.
while we're on, does it make sense to have Chief Catalano come to the meeting on Thursday to maybe clarify the amounts, or I don't know if that's necessary, because this would have to go through votes by the council, board of finance, and a town meeting anyway.
Yeah, I don't think it would need to go. I mean, obviously, we're just trying to look at clarity, understanding of what the, first selectman and town council, see as the most pressing needs, and then we'll come up with a number, and then the prioritization they can figure out by bringing them forward to us. So, as long as we set a number for, I know what we've got coming in this year. You might want to review that with everybody, Ron, too, because I think we're going to be issuing what, $5.5 million this year.
Correct. So what's already been authorized and appropriated, it's actually a little more than $5.5 million that's been authorized and appropriated. But what I'm going to be looking to issue in July is a little over 5.5 million. There is one authorization and appropriation that I thought it best to hold back on at this point, because just for transparency's sake here. So there were various school facility improvements which have not started yet, so I thought we'll just issue those in the next round. That was about
Okay.
900,000 that was approved back in October. So that's the only one that's not gonna be that we're not
Included.
issuing, it's been approved.
So in October, we approved at a public meeting 4 different items, right?
Yeah, so what's, if you want, I'll summarize what I'm gonna be issuing.
Yeah.
So,
Correct.
560,000 for various school improvements that was approved back in June of 2021. February 27th of 2023, 1,020,000 of road construction reconstruction, 1,195,000 of fire apparatus and safety equipment, and 745,000 of trucks and equipment for public works and parks and recreation. And back in October, $1,020,000 for road construction.
Phase 10,
reconstruction,
yeah.
Phase 10, and then $1,030,000 for the purchase of trucks and equipment for public works. So that's what'll be issued in July.
And just so everybody's clear also, what's our current debt number?
So as of today, and we literally just made a bond payment today. The current outstanding debt is $23,620,000. And the projected balance at the end of this year as of 6/30 will be $20,090,000. With the just kind of projecting forward with the projected issue in July of 5,570,000. And the roll off next year, June 30 of 2025, assuming we probably won't issue another set of bonds until July, August of next year. So we'd have about 21,305,000 in outstanding balance at the end of June of 2025.
That's without issuing any further bonds between now and then.
That would be issued with the July issue. That would be included in the July issue.
Right, with July, but nothing past that.
Nothing past July, right?
So even with all this activity, we're still going down.
Yeah, so that was.
Significantly.
Yeah, I mean,
We've got plenty of borrowing capacity.
Right.
correct.
Do we have a list of the bonds that have been authorized but not yet issued?
So that's pretty much what with the exception of what I just ran through, the 5.5, and then there's an additional 900,000 of school projects, which are.
That's all we have authorized.
That's
yes. Okay.
Yeah, our last authorization stuff was October
So
last year.
I'm gonna say with one exception, Pepper Street. Pepper Street was authorized and appropriated up front. So.
Okay. Yeah, I just heard you mention one of those was a 2021 authorization, so I didn't know if we had anything else like sticking around from the 2020s, 2021, but it
Not that I'm
sounds like,
aware of.
all right.
No, not that I'm aware of either.
Good.
All right,
And.
everybody good on fire? Go ahead.
Yeah, well, Mike, I want to just say that it might be worth getting a hold of the chief just to make sure that these are the only 2 vehicles that apply, because there may be something in 25, 26 that we would want to treat the same way.
I thought that's what council did. That's what they were talking about. That's the third thing.
So if I could just chime in really quick, the trucks
Please.
that were asked for from the fire departments are the 2 trucks that, Jason, that you're talking about. The third truck that's of concern is the truck that we currently have. We currently have a ladder truck that was purchased years ago. We made the bulk purchase. Many of the people that are here on council weren't there at that time, is being sold. So that's our
Right.
80-foot ladder truck that they feel they don't need. So we're in the process of selling that for close to $1 million, I guess. It's like 975, I think. I don't know if he has a buyer for that. So that's the third truck in question, is to replace that ladder truck. Okay. So just to,
Right, but we can't replace that until there's been a facility upgrade. So,
well, we could replace it, but there's not room for it at Monroe 1.
Correct.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't be purchasing that until.
Right, and that
we
was,
Had a home.
and that was the chief's talk, which brought you into that 28 area, I think, or 27, 28 with that. Maybe at 29, he might even have said that number, but it was pushed out. But it's that's the third truck.
So, Mike, the third thing, was, road construction and reconstruction and, bonding or funding that, in a more significant fashion than we had in prior years. My understanding that Board of Finance had some discussions on that in their deliberations, okay?
Yes, we did at our meeting last Thursday. With the director and assistant director of public works, and we've identified some bottlenecks, and we're gonna have to talk about how to get ourselves in a position to do. We've got to do more of the storm drains in order to do more of the asphalt on top. That's just the long and the short of it. The road report that you all saw and you know had presented to you all from VHB last year shows that the amount of our backlog has increased from where it was in 2018-19 significantly. You know, the price of stuff has gone up and, you know, the roads continue to deteriorate as they've told us before. So we've got to figure out how to do whatever it is we want to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, from the discussion on the board side, I think there's an appetite to take on more bonding, certainly possibly add some more back into the budget on the operating account. But honestly, I think we were all a little surprised that Public Works was basically indicating that they weren't able to handle anymore the way we're doing it right now. So I think we're going to have to come up with an overall bigger strategy on to, you know, how we're doing it, staffing, outside staffing, you know, drainage. I don't know what the answer is. I think we can probably, you know, I'm going to probably defer to the, you know, first selectman and the town council to figure out, you know, how, you know, whether it's internal positions, external positions, you know, maybe other towns have better ways of doing it, but there is an appetite on the Board of Finance side to fund it heavier. If we could figure out how to make that work in a fashion that's, you know, still relatively economical. Obviously, we don't want to pay twice as much to get the same thing, but I think the concern I have, and I think it's shared by many on the board, is that at our current funding level, we're not making enough progress. So if we just stay the course for the next 2 or 3 years at what's planned, we may go backwards, which is not something that anybody, I think, in the room is looking to do. So, you know, with the current level of funding available, with the current debt, I think roads is something we've got to look at possibly ramping up a little bit more.
So I guess, I'd ask our first selectman, all right, you guys are looking in Public Works, you guys are looking for other ways to increase paving capacity and things like that.
Yeah, well, Chairman Mandros and I spoke today about, you know, increasing the dollar amount, but just to mirror what he said, you know, the dollar amount doesn't necessarily get you much more these days. And I've talked to people in other municipalities, they're experiencing the same, you know, environment. I think, you know, it will come down to, obviously, Frank has some revenue to talk about. Maybe there's some other options to put money, but like Mr. Manjo said, and I did watch the video from the last meeting, there is a little bit of a bottleneck, you know, what Public Works can handle and how to go about that. So without a doubt, we have to have those meetings and take all of the possibilities into consideration and then make it from there.
And those were, I thought, the three main areas that we wanted to look at for town council and bonding. And I'll just, with Chairman Manager's position, I would just ask that Councilmember Mauer be recognized. He may have had another area or something to say, if that's possible.
Perfect. Yeah, please.
The one other area that we had talked about that I think would be right for Board of Finance to review is on the capital budget under the police. There was the animal shelter repairs. Originally at 870, they then estimated 450 to 600, and now with some grant, it's looking more like 0 to 50. Which is fantastic, but there was the question of, is there some amount of appetite to take anything from our operating budget and put it into the police private duty, since that is not coming out of there? Maybe not the full 450, because we want to make sure that there's enough room, but if there's 80,000 or 100,000 or something along those lines that might work out of that fund, since none of the animals, none to 0 to maybe 50,000, it seems like, is what's actually going to end up coming out of there on that one line item. Without knowing the balance or what the health of that fund is, that's hard for us to say, but something that Board of Finance might be able to weigh into.
Yeah, I mean,
So
that fund
Colonel-
tends to run pretty strong, so I don't know, Ron,
Yeah,
if you
so
know what the
currently,
current, yeah.
Mr. Mandros, basically what Councilman Mauer is talking about. Originally, council had approved, that we had a steep grant for $500,000. And there was a proposal from a company in the area of 884,000. Personally, I felt that that was a very expensive proposal. So my request to Public Works was, as you meet people, see what they can do it for. Ultimately, they chose an architect, and the architect came in at a price of in the area of 384,000. Now, that was a bid off of plans. That wasn't giving in real time. However, the steep grant is $500,000, so we know we have that money. Allocated from the special duty fund was at 300 and change. The concern about using that in the operating budget, first of all, the chief of police came in with like a 0 budget this year. The problem with the special duty account, and it's probably part of the reason why it's always been avoided, and it should be, but is that if it was, right now, they're not seeing road work. So that money goes in there from special duty. If they have road work, then it will stay healthy. But right now, there's not any big jobs. And the chief has been very good at, in this budget process, supplying the cars. And then there was a radio update for service, I think in the area of 134,000 that he took out of that account, as well as the $10,000 he said was fine with the Lake Zora. There was a request for the boat. So if that fund stays healthy and they're still working, then that may work. But if that fund starts to lower, there's also I don't know the exact amount in there, but there's also there's money owed from Grasso in there as well. So the number, what Ron and I had spoke about that today, trying to iron that all out to see where that actually stands. But if that fund isn't replenished, then it may become a problem down the road for stuff that the police department needs. So
Are you saying Grasso owes us money
for the police, yes. Yes,
No.
a significant amount of money, and we're working on that right now.
What's, you have a round number?
It's probably I don't want to misspeak, but I'm gonna say it's in the area, it's in the 3 to 5 range.
So the overall receivable in that fund is 323. That's not all Grasso. That's every, any contractor. So I don't have that handy.
So we had around a $2 million balance, excluding things that were committed when you told us that.
Right now, the overall fund balance is about 2.3. So if you back out the entire receivable, you're at about 2.
Yeah, okay, so about 2 in-house, in the account today. Okay.
So just let me understand. So we have a steep grant that we feel is going to cover the entire project?
Well, as it stands right now, until we get prices in real time, which they're working on, yes, it looks like the steep grant would cover. If the building came in at that number, then you'd have a contingency because you have to spend the steep grant or you lose it, right? So you
Right.
have a contingency there of about 116,000, I guess, 384, something like that. But like I said, until the numbers actually come in real time when they bid it, we don't know for sure. That was the proposal from the architect based on the renderings for that building.
And what's our time frame on the getting those numbers, do you think? Because I know there's 5 years seems to fly by with these steep grants that I know they run out too.
Chris, what do you think the time frame is, seeing the real numbers? I mean, it's kind of, oh, Bill. Hi. Hi. Good.
I have the plans or design plans are with the state right now. State reviews them. They promised me 2 weeks. A month is probably 2 weeks.
I was gonna say, so we're figuring them out, right, yeah, exactly.
And once we get those back, and again, the architect is not waiting for the state to come back with the final say so that they're okay, because he feels they are. So I'm looking mid-June, maybe go out to bid,
Got it, okay,
but
so
you know,
relatively
once,
soon.
yeah, relatively soon, definitely, Mike.
Okay.
Maybe sooner, like I said, depends on when the state gets back and says, yes, they're okay, and gives it their final blessing. But DOAG is, you know, they're the ones that gotta say yes to it.
So what kind of bid cycle are you looking at once you're able to put it out to bid? An idea?
I'm saying, once it goes out to bid and everything goes, you know, we do all the vetting and everything like that, I don't see why we couldn't be building within a month. Now, I gotta see who the contractor's gonna be,
Well,
you know, that
yeah.
too. You know, it's a thing where he says, yeah, I can do it for this amount, the amount sounds good, he comes in good, he says, I'll start in 2 months. So I gotta see, you know, that's another thing.
Any other projects you want to call to our attention, or?
Looks like that's it from town council. Thank you very much, Mike.
Okay. So basically, just so I'm clear on everything, you want us to come back, you know, once we're done with this, with a basically a number where we're comfortable with for this year. And then over and above that, I think we're talking about the fire trucks.
I would say so, yes.
Great. Okay.
Yeah, I think we would want to nail down the fire trucks as quickly as we can, so we can go to a public meeting before the.
Yeah, the only thing I would say about the fire trucks is we did run into an issue. We just entered in contract with one, and some of their price terms were pretty aggressive. I'm sorry, that was for the retrofit, but I would say it wouldn't be, they were trying to slip in a price term of, what was it, 8% at first? And then we agreed to a cap of 5%. So some of those numbers are concerning as to whether or not the builders will stick to those types of requirements. Fortunately, our town attorney was able to cap it at 5%, but
That was a slightly different circumstance though with the
Yeah.
retrofit.
but it's just something
Versus
to
purchase
think
agreement.
about, I think.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm concerned because of that. I'm concerned because of what the chief said with the continual increases. So we already know that. So it, based on what the chief said, it clearly would behoove us to get a town authorization that we can take to the builder and lock in his price at this point. Because every quarter that we don't do that, we're gonna see at least a 3% increase according to the chief.
It's trying to lock in the price. So to get ahead of ourselves to lock in on something that's still a moving target. And you gotta keep that into account as well. Everybody wants to do it now. Everybody wants to lock in the price. Everybody wants to know X, Y, and Z right in front of them. You know, somewhat, it's somewhat, you know, unknown at this point. So we gotta lock it down. You can't have 5%, 8% on top of these numbers and can't cap anybody in. But let's go ahead and move forward on the.
Well, no, that's why we've got.
Having those details twisted around. So let's do it right. Pay attention, get it done in the kind of normal speedy way. It's gonna get done when it gets done.
But the longer we wait to get it done, the more money we're spending.
I understand that. There's several wheels spinning around here.
Do we-
We're all in favor of getting this equipment timely and as cheaply and as efficiently as possible.
Do we have to have specs written by each of the departments before moving forward with bonding?
Well, the departments will go out to the vendor with their specs and come, and the vendor will give them a price.
But does that have to be done? Do they have to have their specs written before getting the bonding authorization?
No,
Okay,
we could bond, we could set up,
We could pick a number out of thin air if we want.
we've been told 1.1 to 1.2. We
Okay.
can bonding, we can authorize 2.4. If it comes in under, fantastic. If it comes in over, we can adjust in the fiscal year 26, 27. But at least then the authorization is there that we can put in a purchase order.
No, I want to.
So if we are
can-
comfortable
we
with,
can, as long as the citizens of the town will approve it, we can pick whatever number we think is reasonable, and I would look to the chief to tell us where he thinks we will be with a number, let's say 3 months from now, if we think that's how long it's gonna take us to get a bonding authorization, get through bond council and get through the town council and the board of finance and a public meeting. That's where I would look for it. I mean, I'd like to do it before the end of June. That would be my personal goal. I mean, I think we can get it through both bodies. Maybe,
it should be able to.
if we're all in agreement.
Yeah, I don't think that's the problem. I think it's just bond council sometimes. It's not the
Yeah, well, bond
speediest thing,
council
so,
can take whatever, that's right.
June might
but-
June might be ambitious, but I think in the next 3 months for sure.
can we
So
authorize
it's almost May already.
something like that within, don't you have the 60-day rule? Can we authorize something like that after the end of the fiscal year?
You can, I mean, it could be in.
Doesn't
next
have
year
any
after-
effect on the fiscal year.
Yeah, we could
Oh, okay.
authorize and appropriate.
Okay.
Yeah, we could start that process tomorrow
Okay,
and then go out to a town meeting. It's kind of, even though it's in the capital plan, it's kind of independent because it's bond authorization, the charter speaks to the process.
okay. Thank you.
I mean, the good news, I think, here is we're all in agreement that this is the idea that we want to follow. And we're
Right.
all in, both bodies, council and board of finance, are in sync with this idea. Because this is something that was floated a couple of months ago.
Sure.
I think we just need a little bit more information from fire services,
I agree.
for, potential vendors and potential contractual terms. Not that we have to come to an immediate agreement with them, but we need to know the appropriate range to bond for. So I think that's all due diligence that we can get done pretty quickly. But it's important that those be done.
So why don't we ask the fire chief for those pieces of information?
Oh, no, we can, that's
Okay.
the point.
Sorry, guys, I lost you for a second there.
Yeah, no, we're just gonna get more information from fire services as to appropriate vendors and the appropriate range for the purchases of these vehicles, as well as any potential contingency that we would have to build into these authorizations. But I think that's perfectly fine, and I think that's all we have from town council.
All right.
Is that a wrap?
Anything from finance? I'm
just
good
have-
on my side. Just check-
I have one thing, Mr. Mendoza,
Yes.
Chairman Formicello. We did have a cursory conversation I did with Councilman Formicello and with you as well in the area of public works, just as far as the highway building is concerned. Do you remember, do you recall that conversation, John? And just,
A little bit.
yeah, so I don't want it to be lost in the meeting. So the highway department, Public Works had made a request for 75,000 to repair the roof and then $20,000 for modifications. I would strongly request that gets looked at seriously because we have a leaky roof there. We do have a very poor facility there for the men and women that work there. So I just would like you to take that into strong consideration when you're considering capital projects.
Question, is that, question to Chris, is that the item called highway office renovation and upgrades?
Correct, yeah, the roof is listed.
And the roof, okay, so the roof is another item, so that's 75,000 plus 135. Okay,
So it looks like so they put the 220 in fiscal year 25-26. It's something that needs attention a little bit sooner than that. That's
Fair
all
enough.
I have.
well, I see it in
Terrific.
24, 25.
I have it here. 25-26 right here.
Capital request.
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh, yeah.
so yeah, the capital project package and the budget book don't necessarily agree then on that one item in terms of timing. What's that?
What page is that,
That
Steve?
might have.
Well,
One
I-
eighty-six.
Well,
186 would be.
Yeah,
is it
Yeah,
Yeah.
Is that the project that's going on, taking 2 fiscal years? Is that what that was?
Predominantly at that point, but because of conversation.
That's nice.
Obviously, you have that process.
Yeah, I just made visits to
And then
most of the
more
town facilities,
Future years.
just to get an idea where we stand in real time. That one, it's really in need of desperate attention.
why is it?
And so-
Why is it in two places? I don't understand.
Upcoming.
I think it would make sense. I mean, we're already doing the animal shelter, which is next door.
Yep.
So, it would, you know, I do have considerations down the line for a Butler building because we do have a lot of equipment on the ground. We have about $1 million worth of equipment that just sits on the ground, but I had discussions with Chris Nowacki and Bill Phillips. And that's something we may consider for next year. But for right now, that would greatly help the staff there.
So Mike, I've got a question. I'm on page 186 of the budget book. And I'm looking at the two line items, the office renovation followed by the roof. And so you have $75 for the $75,000 in the 24-25 plan, followed by another 220 in the 25-26 plan for the office, and then you have 135,000 in the 24-25 plan for the roof. So we're saying that for those two items, it's the sum of all of those numbers. So in other words, the highway office renovation is 295,000 in total. The roof is another 135,000.
Or is the
Right.
upgrade that building that you were
Are
talking
you
about?
looking to move the
He's-
two, are you looking to move the
Correct.
220 in?
Correct,
Yes.
yes.
Okay. All right.
And more likely than not, the authorization or appropriation, our bond council would want that wrapped into one.
Right.
Authorization, probably highway and building. things.
Will the expenditure be in one fiscal year? The construction?
It could be, absolutely.
It could be.
A lot of moving pieces to it, but yeah.
So if we move the 220 into 24-25, that means beginning theoretically in July, we could go out to bond for that. And you'd have the money to go start construction as quickly as you can and complete it between then and the first half of next year. That's what you're saying you would do?
Correct.
Okay.
And this is easier construction than most because we're not changing the footprint,
Yeah.
right? So you're just remodeling a pre-existing building.
Improvements.
Yeah.
Yeah, because this has been talked about for a while, if I'm not
Correct.
mistaken. I think I can find this going back a number of years. Okay.
Okay. All right,
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
perfect. Anybody got anything else?
That's it, Mike.
So Mike,
All right.
on Thursday, are we gonna talk about what our appetite is for total
Yes,
bonding?
that was my plan. Yeah, we'll have our total number on Thursday and then our punch list of items that we need to hit. So I got 3 or 4 of them. I'll send a list out to everybody just to make sure we're not missing anything, and then hopefully wrap up Thursday.
Okay, now, I'm assuming based on past history and statements made by our rating agencies that we have plenty of room and balances we used to carry, that we have plenty of room to add debt.
I think if you look at the analysis they do in the financial statements, we could go up to somewhere around 400 million. Yes.
Well, okay.
I think you got plenty of room.
Recommend that.
No, that, yeah, well, the financial statement is, I guess, one thing. I wasn't taking that to mean a rating agency, but yes, I did see our legal limit.
Yes.
That in the CAFR, it states it as our legal limit.
Yes.
So,
So yes,
right,
well,
our
there's plenty
legal
of room.
limit
I
is-
mean, we used to run in the 40 to 45 million range. in
Yes.
debt, so
and
there is
we're down in
plenty of room for debt. We're in the
and we're
20s.
down in the low 20s. That's the point.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. All right. Well, I want to thank the council for coming and always find it productive to do these things together. So I appreciate that. And someone wants to make a motion, we can call it an early night.
Steve Kirsch, motion to adjourn.
Thank you very much. Thank you all.
Oh,